gentlemen. Welcome back to the final two podcasts. Today we have a very special guest, none other than Bill HERENDA. Yes, sir. Great to have you on the show.
Thank you. My pleasure. Thanks for having me.
No doubt.
Thank you for coming on the show. Thank you for coming on the show. Pleasure's ours.
Absolutely. So Bill, start us off with, you were in basketball a lot. You've always grew up, played the game, loved the sport. And after finishing your collegiate career at UMass Lowell, which is actually where your brother used to coach as well before he came to FDU, Coach Greg HERENDA, what was your first, occupation, and what drove you to first attain that position?
Well, you know what, guys? Ironically, Greg was an assistant coach my freshman year up there. And, I played at St. Peter's Prep in Jersey City. And by the end of it, it was a great ride. It was a great experience. But I really was just completely burned out with playing. And, we won a national championship at the Division II level my senior year and had a great crew there as far as teammates, coaches, and coaching staff and the administration. So I took a sales job with my cousin who ran and still runs Garden State Office Systems back in Jersey, and sold filing systems and for office furniture to doctors and hospitals. And that was my first foray into the business world. And again, I just, while coaching always kind of like loomed near me, I kind of was burned out, got a little bit away from the game, but I volunteered as an assistant coach at St. Peter's Prep, but thought that, business was going to be the path for me. And that's the path that I chose early on, although I never realized at the time that it would become kind of a circuitous route, and that basketball would always and entertainment would also kind of pull at my heartstrings.
Mm-hmm. So before we even get into all that, I want you to take me back to where did basketball become like your favorite thing in the world? Where did that passion come from? I want to learn a little bit about that.
Well, I think it was really, my environment. Obviously, as you guys know, growing up in Jersey and in Hudson County, I was born in Jersey City, grew up in North Bergen, again, went to high school down at Prep. And, if you had a ball, you had something to do. And there was a court, the 79th Street courts, literally right across the street from my house. And if I was looking for activity and there was none there, I'd go to 82nd Street and the park there, or 88th Street. So to me, it's a global game, of course, and it's not just an urban game. It's a rural game. It's a suburban game. But at that time, for me, in my world, it was right there. It was everything that I wanted and I needed. It was really part of our environment. My brothers played, and also really going back to my grandfather, Bad Bill Bergen, an ironic nickname because he was a terrific competitor on the floor, but a real gentleman off of it. And you guys remember his son, my uncle Billy. So, Bill Bergen and Tony Calandriello, my uncle, my great uncle, they were semi-pro basketball players and semi-pro baseball players. So I kind of felt like I was born into it and loved it. No one ever pushed me to play. I just kind of gravitated towards it, and really as a kid enjoyed every minute of it. So it was like a very natural progression. Who knows, if there had been a piano in the living room, maybe I'd be a Billy Joel too. I don't know, but it was really basketball and sports that did it for us.
How have you taken your drive for athletics, for sports in general? How have you taken that to the business world? How important is that, you would say?
Well, I think it's really important because as life has evolved and the world has evolved, I think you realize that at the end of the day, the only thing that you can control is really doing your best. So whatever it is I'm doing at that particular time, and I do a lot of radio interviews on the NBA, for example. So what can you bring to the table that maybe people are not familiar with? Do people remember that UB Brown's cardinal rule of the NBA playoffs is controlling your defensive board? Do they know that Oklahoma City won 30 clutch games? That was the most clutch wins games within 5 points with 5 minutes to go in the NBA? Do they know of Dallas's struggles to finish? That they, don't quote me on this, but it was 17 games that they lost, bringing a lead into the final stanza, et cetera. So anyway, I digress a little bit, but I think we all have unique gifts and talents and passions. And I think it's really important to go to sleep every night and think about, what have I learned today? How have I gotten better? It reminds me of my notebook that I kept when I was playing at UMass Lowell, and I would literally write down everything I did that day during the off season to become a better player. And now I think it's a very similar parallel in, okay, what have I done to make the world a better place? How have I helped that listener, that audience member better understand? And it's not a coach's clinic, but it's informative and it should be fun. So how have I been able to inform and entertain today and brought an experience for someone that maybe they wouldn't have if I had just mailed it in?
Yeah. How important is it to take notes? Because that's one thing I learned in my internship this year was the importance of taking notes in the business world and whatever you do, because it helps you retain more information. How was that note taking changed your life and improved your, strategies to be successful?
Yeah, it's everything, Oliver, to me. Particularly, I think my memory is pretty good, but there's nothing like writing it down to reinforce it, or to jot it down in my notes section of my phone, of course, that's linked with my MacBook. And I refer to them all the time. And, for example, I've got a cheat sheet on every team in the NBA that the foundation for it is either NBA.com and their stats or Basketball Reference, to be able to go back to those notes all the time. And it's also a good way to track, am I growing? Because if you're not taking notes and there's an empty slate, it's like that may not have been the most productive day. So it's funny that you ask about that, because I'm a religious note taker, and just picking up different tidbits along the way is a real opportunity, because there's so much good information out there. And I also am a big believer too in attributing credit to where you garner your information from, and make sure to really credit those. It's like Sinatra. He was great at acknowledging, whether it was Don Costa or Nelson Riddle, the arrangers, or Rogers and Hart, the writers of Sammy Kahn, the writers of his music too. So I think that's an important quality to have kind of have a wide view of the world and give people credit where credit is due.
Absolutely. It's funny that you mentioned that. I've actually been listening to a lot of Sinatra and D. Martin lately. I don't know why. I mean, listen, I'm a young kid, but I just find it soothing and relaxing listening to their music. But now take me back to when you first, got the position to become like an NBA contributor, as you mentioned before. You talk about the note taking, you talk about learning the game, watching tapes, and strategic analysis as well. So what was the atmosphere like when you were working as an NBA contributor, stepping into the NBA arena, and what were some of your favorite moments out there, either on the court or what you've seen in games?
Yeah, well, it's interesting because a lot of it is not, it's similar to being 12 years old and being on the corner of 79th Street and Kennedy Boulevard and breaking down players and the game and matchups. And now, of course, in this era of data and analytics at your fingertips, there's a lot more to go with there. But I would say that the most memorable moments for me, back in 2014-15, that season, I was the Sacramento Kings insider on NBC Sports Bay Area. And the night Klay Thompson went for 37 in the third quarter against the Sacramento Kings, I was there, and ironically, I had an episode, although it was momentary, I lost my voice during the pregame show, which we had great fun with. Bobby Jackson, the studio analyst, who's now an assistant coach with Sacramento and played there, and Guy Haberman, the studio host. We had great fun with that. But that certainly was an incredible individual performance to have seen that live, and was just amazing. You know, you run out of superlatives to describe what that was like. And then also being a Jersey guy to work All-Star Weekend at Barclays Center and then at the Garden. The game was at the Garden, and then the dunk contest, the three-point contest was at Barclays Center.
Amazing dunk contest.
Yeah. So that was, you know, really another special night. But, you know, I'm not really big on those. Those are things like that are most vivid for me. But to be honest, I'm always kind of looking forward to the next thing, you know, and like I've done, Gary Radnich was kind of like the Mike Francesa of the San Francisco Bay Area. And I did his show during the playoffs. I believe it was back in 2018. It may have been even last year, shortly before he retired. And that was a lot of fun because in that area of California, he was a guy that was like synonymous with sports talk and what have you. So that was a lot of fun. So there's, although a loquacious answer, there are three answers to that.
No, I just take away one big thing. You say you're from New Jersey and you're an actor, a speaker, an NBA contributor. You have a lot of accolades, a lot of things you're doing. Very versatile. How did you get these opportunities? How did you put yourself in these situations to succeed at such a high level, and
especially beyond basketball? That's very
beyond
impressive.
Basketball. Very impressive.
Well, no, you know what, guys? I think thank you, and I mean, I think there are some messages things that I've learned along the way. I've got a great wife and great daughters who are real supportive, and part of it is, you know, not saying no to opportunities, trying to listen to the universe and really go with the flow. Because I'll give you a quick example. I was doing basketball broadcasts as an analyst at UC Davis. They're a member of the Big West Conference. And they asked me to do football sidelines reporting for the radio broadcasts. And I said yes, I did it. And it was really a different skill set. And it taught me, you know, you have to get in and out pretty quickly as well during basketball broadcasts on radio. But this was another skill set of like interviewing the coach at halftime and post game and a player post game, and to get in and get out, give an injury report. So that led to doing morning sports updates on a iHeart radio station in Sacramento, similar to like WINS, or similar.
That's crazy.
It's a news format, so similar to INS in New York. But if I hadn't done the football halftime reporting, I may not have had the skill set to do the quick, 1-2 minute updates, dropping in audio and what have you. So I guess what I'm trying to say is, like, never say no to an opportunity, and then each opportunity kind of builds on the next. And then the acting is, kind of another, I would say, offshoot of that work and that discipline. And Jenna Fisher, who played Pam in The Office, she has a great book called The Actor's Guide, and there's a lot in there that is valuable to any pursuit in life. And she talks about, like, you if you're good or not. Like, you can feel it in your heart. And if you think you are, to keep going. And really, you are enough. And there's an acting coach here in Hollywood who's absolutely tremendous. I've only audited his classes, but Joseph Perlman, and he says, like, when you're done, and I think this is a really good barometer for anything that you do. Was it fun? Was it effortless? Did you make an impact? And did it feel like you? So if you can answer in a positive fashion to all four of those questions in whatever you're doing, you're probably on the right track.
I agree with the positivity. I think everything in life, you must stay positive. Even though me and Sal are young per se, we've earned a lot in our short amount of years. But to see someone so successful as you and hear that the positivity is still going on in your through your success, it shows a lot that no matter what, since you were little or to where you're at now, you have to stay positive. So I think that's one thing I just took away from everything you just said. So without a doubt, that's one thing I feel like our viewers should understand is no matter what, you got to stay positive. There's always a reason why things happen. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, we lost my father. I was 12 years old. He was 50 at the time, which was absolutely tragic. And we lost my sister and my sister-in-law when they were in their 40s. And there's not a tougher setback than those types of setbacks. So, but I agree that you've got to have the visualization. You've got to have the expectation that things are going to work out. And listen, the entertainment business is tough, man. I mean, it is really tough. And I've had my share of setbacks, really in all walks of life, like whether it's business, in entertainment, and it's all about the next play. And it's like Charlie Mars, the sports psychologist with the Cleveland Indians. He's worked with the Cavaliers and other professional sports franchises, and it's the growth mentality as opposed to the fixed mentality. So I've got to believe that I can grow and get better, and that where I'm at now, I'm not locked into this ability. And the own it, claim it, own it, fix it mentality, and stay in the moment, work on this experience, and don't get caught up in the results. Stay within the process and stay focused. And in their case with the Indians, it's baseball isn't who I am; it's what I do. So to have that detachment as well from performance to who you are, and recognizing that things will get better, and really believing it. Yeah, to me, it's really been everything to stay positive, even during some extremely difficult times, whether it be personally and professionally. So, and I also feel like, growing up back in Hudson County was just great. I loved it, and I think I really learned how to persevere there. And I think through basketball is where I learned a lot of those lessons early on in life about persistence and sticking with something. And I was also very fortunate. I had great coaches growing up. I mean, Jerry Halligan was a legend at St. Peter's Prep, and he was kind of like the Bob Hurley before Bob Hurley, and Hurley played for him actually as well. He coached at Prep for 30 years. We had a lot of team success there, and then again the success at UMass Lowell. So I felt very fortunate that I had positive experiences, which helped me really believe that anything was possible.
So how did you gain this opportunity to be in SWAT and do a role? And I saw that you said that coming in the first day, they were very loving to you, very accepting, and you felt like you did an amazing job right away off the bat because you felt like you were welcome. How was that feeling like to be in something like that? Because honestly, that would be a dream of mine to ever be like in a movie or something like that.
Yeah, well, no, it's very interesting because, going into it, you kind of feel like as someone who's going to appear in one episode, and Jenna Fisher gives this advice in her book, to kind of like stay in your lane, because it's like a family atmosphere, and it's really a locker room, and you're a guest in that environment. So I just went in with, the mentality that, hey, I just want to do the best possible job for the people I'm working with, of course, the entire cast and crew, and also ultimately the audience. But you could just tell right away that the culture there was special. And Shamar Moore and Kenny Johnson, David Bradley Lim, the whole cast were just extremely welcoming, and it was just a great experience. How it happened is, probably, I think for many actors, you have representation and they're identifying roles that would be a good fit. and just one thing leading to another, and the stars being aligned, and it being coming to fruition. So I was really fortunate that happened, and it was just great. I can't say enough about those guys and the environment that they have at that show. It really was special, and hopefully the finished product was good. And it also had, it was Eric Dickerson and Willie McGinnis, James Harrison, some NFL guys were on that show as well. We're in that episode, I should say, and so it was kind of fun. There was just a positive vibe all around.
That's incredible. And I saw a clip. I think a clip of a moment that you were acting in, and it was a serious role as well. SWAT is a very serious show, talking about criminal investigations and whatnot. So the late, great Kobe Bryant, I don't know if you guys know the story, but he would study the game tremendously, obviously watching tapes of Jordan, receiving advice from Phil Jackson, but he also took the time to study actors. One in particular, it was actually Heath Ledger. He used to be the Joker. He was the original Joker in The Dark Knight.
Yeah.
He was inspired by the way he just, ultimately was all consuming in that role, became like that psycho Joker, and used that as inspiration for his huge night a day later at the Madison Square Garden. He scored 61 points because he was just motivated by Heath Ledger, changing into, that Mamba mentality and becoming an animal. So I ask you, being that you're an actor, how do you flip that switch in your mind, cancel out the reality, I'm not Bill HERENDA, I'm this character in this show now, and become, like I said, all-consuming in your role?
Yeah, well, I think, the part of it is having the ability to just kind of slow down. And, I've been, I guess it's all a year and a half, 2 years doing some meditation, which I think is really helpful. I've also gone you guys may think I'm going crazy here, but I've gone to like a plant-based diet over the last couple of years.
Oh, I'm on that. 3 months.
Sal's been telling me
really?
this. Sal's been telling me this the past summer. I eat too much rice and beans.
Honestly, it's very, very good for you, honestly.
Yeah, so but that actually qualifies as plant-based, the rice and beans. That's good. That's good.
Sorry, go. I can talk all day about rice, beans, and chicken being Dominican, so don't get me started.
No. So I think, I raised these issues in answer to the question only because I think that if you have the ability to kind of slow your mind down and to kind of control certain things, I think it's helpful to actually perform. And I think those are things that help, your performance. And I think like anything else, kind of the ability to practice and understand, your lines so well that you're not repeating your lines. If you have to think about it, that's not good. Bob Usler, the sports update guy on one of the sports update guys on WFAN. I heard Tim Capster on one of the Brooklyn Nets broadcasts recently say that you think, you stink. So if you have to think, you can't think and hit, right? Yogi Berra. So yeah. I think from that standpoint, just being able to kind of quiet the mind, kind of slow down, focus, be in the moment, and rehearse and have your the right perspective. At least that for me sets like the right environment to perform and hopefully bring it to a level that, again, at the end of the day, you're gonna be pleased with Perlman's 4 criteria.
It's crazy because it's like a whole circle, because that's what sports is like. When you have man on third, when you run at third, you got to slow the game down. It doesn't matter if it's the first inning or the last inning. It's about slowing the game down. Same thing as basketball. Now you talk about the real world. Everything is connected to like the sports world, I feel like. So that's just one thing I just took away from that whole conversation you were saying. Because my next question was going to be like, aren't you ever nervous being there? Any butterflies? Like if it was like the beginning of a game, because anyone could tell you there's always a little butterflies till the first shot goes up, till the first hit, first pitch gets thrown. What was that for you as well, or no?
Absolutely, yeah, all the time, all the time. I mean, even for every appearance for today with you guys, or I do a bunch of different SB Nation radio. I do a weekly appearance there on one show and some other ad hoc appearances in different cities throughout the country. And certainly, yeah, for the SWAT appearance, yeah, I mean, and I think performance anxiety is a real thing, and I think it's good to acknowledge it and embrace it. And I also think that it's a way of knowing that you really care and that it means something. Because if you were just winging it all the time and you didn't care and there was no anxiety, maybe you're not where you really need to be to do your best work. So yeah, that's definitely part of it all the time. And there are a lot of parallels to playing. Like having played back in the day. You're right. Like I can remember that feeling of my heart beating really fast and my breathing being fast, and also the feel of like cotton balls in the back of my throat. But that lasted that was very fleeting to me, at least, because like once you get into the flow of the game, like you come off the bench and you check in for the first time and you have those, but it kind of goes like that first possession, you're into it and you're in that world. But and I guess it's similar here. You do an appearance and you answer the first question and then you're into it and you're just thinking about the series and you're thinking about, okay, can Dallas bounce against the Clippers? And these 8 seeds are beating the 1 seeds, and it's rarely happens. But yeah, I'm nervous all the time.
I've been very, very nervous with this playoff series. And I was actually going to talk about that, being that you're an NBA contributor, you're watching all these games, man. What are your predictions, man? I am so skeptical. Nobody has home court advantage. I was so pissed off yesterday. LeBron had a triple-double, and his team did not help him, besides Davis and Kuzma. I mean, it's insane. It's insane. Anybody can go. It could be an 8 seed being a 1 seed or a 7 seed being a 2 seed. It's insane.
Yeah, no, it is, Sal. Really, and I think the NBA has a way of embarrassing you if you don't absolutely bring it. And like in Milwaukee's case, they looked like just somnambulant early, and I don't. It's hard to explain why or how that is, and I think that in this age of Twitter and what have you, it's easy also to overreact. So it's still only one game.
Very true. Exactly.
So,
and I remember Orlando beat Toronto last year, game 1 of the playoffs. And next thing you know, Toronto wins the whole thing. I was believing that they were not a championship team by letting Orlando beat them. So again, like you said, you can't just judge it by one game. I agree with that.
Yeah, you really can't. And it's funny, Steve Clifford, we go way back with him to when he was an assistant coach at St. Anselm's up in New Hampshire. And see, his teams are always well prepared. They usually defend without fouling, and they're low turnover teams, so they don't beat themselves. So if you do that, you've got the ability to stay in games. And their offense lately has been very good. And Vucevic was tremendous yesterday.
He went off.
And he went off, and they were making threes. And we know that Milwaukee, they do defensively. Now, they're the number 1 rated defensive team in the league. But they will give you the three-point shot, and they protect the paint. So they've allowed the most threes on average per game per night, have the Bucks, even though they're the number 1 defensive rating team. So if you're making threes, and again, you're defending, you stick to the game plan, and you're defending without fouling as Orlando does, and you take care of the ball, you give yourself a chance to win, which they did. Now the Lakers last night, this was kind of interesting. Now I tweeted this out last night. You think about this. They held Portland to 100 points. That's 15 below Portland's average, okay? They held the Blazers to under 40% overall, under 40% from 3. They had 18 more field goal attempts than the Blazers, and they lost.
Wow.
But therein lies the problem. They had 17 offensive rebounds, but they shot 5 of 32, 16% from three, and just 35% overall. So the numbers always tell a story, and it underscores the need for balance in the NBA. Because if you listen to those numbers, you would have thought the Lakers win. But why did they lose? They really lost because their defense was pretty good, but their offense was feckless, and that's something that they're going to have to correct. But again, as scintillating as Lillard has been, it's just one game. So we'll see what the adjustments are. And I apologize if I'm going long here or.
No, I love this. We
good.
love this.
Or
this
all
is exactly what we like.
Good.
Exactly what we like. So how do you feel about the bubble? How crazy is that the NBA just honestly, truthfully, in my opinion, as much as I love baseball, I think as of now, I think goes NFL, NBA, and baseball, maybe even NHL before baseball, because I am disgusted the way baseball's been handling things. But let's not even get into that. Anyways, so I really think the NBA has done an amazing job with the bubble. What do you think about that? How did that bubble, I don't know. It's crazy to me how they handled it that way.
Yeah, well, you know what, Albert? I think that it's gone extremely well. And there's nothing more important than the health and safety of the players, coaching staff, the NBA staff there, the game operations people, everyone. The folks that are wiping up the sweat on the floor. There's nothing more important than the health and safety of everyone involved. And I think, when you looked at it beforehand, it was a audacious move, a bold move to bring everyone to one spot and try to make this work. And it's worked. And to the players' credit, to everyone's credit there, they have, again, really displayed the mental toughness to get this done, because I'm sure it's not easy to be kind of isolated. But now you're seeing, the ability for some family and what have you to enter the bubble as the 6 teams depart, who did not qualify for the playoffs. So yeah, it's worked out really well. You got to give the NBA a lot of credit, and knock wood, it'll continue to be a safe place. And I think, the other service that they're providing is, yes, they're providing entertainment, but they're also providing a platform for social justice and for racial equality, and to be able to have, the game, yes, but then also have those messages be articulated and shared and broadcast throughout the world. So I think there are a variety of things that the NBA being back in the bubble is providing, and I think all of those things should really be obviously applauded.
Absolutely. I was going to say, I beg to differ, Oliver. I think the NBA is killing. I think they're alongside UFC, those two organizations are the best right now in the sports business with the bubble idea.
I'm not saying the way they handle COVID. I'm talking about truthfully, how NFL is above everything. I think NBA is better than NFL, but I'm just saying NFL is still up there. I feel like they're number one.
It's debatable. What do you think, Mr. HERENDA? What do you think? Who's killing it right now?
Yeah, so you got to call me Bill. Too.
Bill, I got you.
Yeah.
I'll be respectful. I was just being respectful.
Yeah, no, thanks. It's all good. But no, I would have to say NBA, just because I'm an NBA guy,
Thank you.
But I certainly have respect for every professional league. But if I'm forced to choose, I would go with the NBA. I love the Mets. That'll tell you all you need to know about my take on MLB and my emotional state there. Although they're playing a little bit better lately.
One of my closest friends is Jose Reyes. Actually, that's actually kind of crazy. You're a Mets fan, so.
Is that right? Oh, nice.
Yeah.
Excellent.
Yeah,
you just retired, right? You just officially retired.
Mm-hmm.
That's my workout partner. So, last summer we worked out every day. We worked out every day, and then once COVID hit, it's like we all went our separate ways right now. So That's kind of funny you said Mets fan. So I kind of had to add that. I don't know.
Yeah, I love it. That's great. That's great.
There is, you know where to come. Come support us. Final two. So, being an NBA contributor, yeah. Let me segue into this now. Being an NBA contributor, you've had a lot of experience watching the games, watching professionals, but you've also taken the time to watch college basketball. You know, the powerhouse conferences, and your brother is the head coach of Fairleigh Dickinson University, of course, and you know, being that you watched all these games, all these highlights, you've commentated, you know, what are some key goals that a team like FDU should make, you know, at the jump of the season and, of course, for the road to March Madness?
Yeah, well, you know, I'm so proud of Greg and what he's been able to do at FDU with, of course, his staff. You know, Bruce Hamburger's been great, and Pete Lapis and Darius Stokes and Dwayne Lee and Maurice Joseph, guys that have moved on. So, and the administration, Brad has been great as AD, and David before him, President Capuano, the whole administration, because I think it's just important to recognize the training staff. See, I think what happens is a lot of times people see this is, you know, Shane Parrish is a guy who runs the Farnham Street blog and the Knowledge Project podcast. And he's kind of like a mental models guy. Like he's big into Warren Buffett and Charlie Munger, and kind of gotten into his stuff lately. And he has a great line. He says, what you see is never all there is. And I think that's important for all of us in anything we're looking at. So what you see is never all there is. So it takes so much for a program like FDU, which was moribund, you know, before Greg got there, was really struggling to turn it around. And it takes all of those constituencies, you know, the great alums that are donors, again, the administration, not to mention, of course, the student body that'll be there to support at games, and the community, the staff, and of course the players, right? So much with their sacrifice and contribution. So, having set the table there, I think the biggest thing for a program like FDU is they have a lot of guys coming back, and then they've had another really good recruiting class. So I think from day one, you've got to accept accountability and responsibility, and you understand and you help and teach the new guys that have come on campus that it's like Edgar Schein is his professor at MIT. He defines culture as the way we do things here. I used to be with the Positive Coaching Alliance, a lot of that sports psychology stuff. So I think it's big. So I think the number one thing is you establish, okay, the way we do things here is that, yeah, we cut hard, we run our stuff, we work out, we lift, and we really get after it. So I think the bottom line is, number one, you continue that culture and understand your role responsibilities, and understand that your role and responsibilities may change from today through March. So Doug Collins, former NBA guy, know your role, stay in your role, star in your role, but know that your role could change. Okay. So it's our culture. Everyone's got their role. And then on the floor, I would say that offense is going to come and go. You're going to have nights where you're red hot. You're going to be nights that you're ice cold, like the Lakers. We talked about that. But the things that you can control are your effort, and particularly defensively. Now, in the NBA, there have only been 2 NBA champions over the last 20 years outside of the top 10 in defensive rating. The 18 Warriors were 11th, and the Lakers in 01 were 21st. So defense, to me, is key, because you can bring that anywhere. It's transportable. You can have it at home. You can take it on the road. So I would have the focus on our culture, the way we do things here. Know your role, stay in your role, start your role. But know it could change. It could change due to injuries and academics. You just never know. So stay ready so you don't have to get ready. Jonathan Simmons, an NBA free agent. And then finally, I would focus it all on the defense. And I think if you do those three things, you will position yourself to succeed. And I mean, and I know, even this year, right? I mean, they were one stop away from advancing in the NEC tournament again. So sometimes things like that can really serve as motivation, particularly for your returning players. And again, it underscores the importance of defense.
That was our struggles, starting off the game in the beginning, with the hot streak. Portland did that yesterday with that lead they had with, McCollum, Nurkic, Lillard. They were all taken off. They came back in the middle, halftime, but then again, third quarter started, they came off flat-footed. Lillard took off. So I'm glad you shared that, a lot to take from, especially as freshmen coming in now. They're going to need to know their experience. That's a different landscape than what it was in high school. And, if they want to be successful, they got to go after it from the jump.
Yeah, and I would say, and also, Sal and Oliver, this is, I think, a really salient point. And I'm glad you raised that because, John Rothstein, CBS's college analyst, guru, insider, tweeted this out. He said, for mid-May, paraphrasing it, but you think about John Morant and Lillard and McCollum. So you're talking about Murray State, Weber State, and Lehigh. So if you're playing at a mid-major school, I would never put a ceiling on what any individual or what any collective group can accomplish. So you see guys in the NBA playing at an extremely high level that played at schools, similar to FDU, or at least closer to FDU. You know what I mean? So I think that also should serve as great motivation from a individual skill development idea to also a collective idea. And listen, it is all about, the game in the collegiate level too. It's all about creating, sustaining, and surviving runs. It really is.
No, I think you really have a great grasp in how the new generation is coached, because from the Bill HERENDA Rice Talk summary, one of the things you pointed out was role improvement in the C. And one thing I took from that, I feel like coaches a lot of times don't see is body language. It's just a fact of like confidence, giving your players confidence. And that's just the way the new generation is, because before 20 years ago, it was more like, I'm going to get on you and you fix it. Now it's more like a little bit of, in a way, babying players to succeed a little more. Would you agree?
Yeah. I mean, definitely. Thanks for the kind words, Oliver, on the talk. But listen, Gordy Chiesa, who's actually a Hudson County guy, who was a longtime assistant to Jerry Sloan with the Utah Jazz, with the late Jerry Sloan, who's a great coach and a great man. He talks about the elite coaches today being new wave communicators with old school values. So, yeah, the ability to listen and understand the player holistically is really important, because I think people can sense sincerity and they can sense the lack of it in a heartbeat. And in today's era, it is really important to be a connector, to be able to understand a player and to help them be as successful as they can on and off the floor, to be in it for the long term, to really have their best interests at heart. And that does not remove the tough conversations or having to have those tough conversations with your players either. But I think if they know you're coming from a great place, they're going to take it to heart. And 9 out of 10 times, despite the high transfer rate in college, they're gonna roll with it and going to stick around and work it out. But listen, coaching is definitely, I think it's tougher than it's ever been, but it's probably more rewarding than it's ever been as well.
I completely agree with that, because we have a whole new generation of players that I feel like some coaches don't understand that you have to adapt as much as the players need to adapt, especially the freshmen coming in, especially sophomores, when new coaches coming in, is adapting to each other to be successful. For example, in FDU making it to the March Madness, that's insane, but they were able to adapt to the environment that they were in, winning the first game in the tournament, which was the most amazing thing to watch. So without a doubt, I agree exactly with what that video was showing. And anyone on our viewers right here who love basketball, at least want a little piece of motivation, go check it out. It's Bill HERENDA, Rice Talk Summary. It was dope. I liked it a lot personally.
Mm-hmm. Link will be in the description.
Link will be in the description without a doubt. And Sal, anything?
This is awesome. I'm so happy to have you on the show. You know,
this is great.
I knew Greg HERENDA was a great guest. I knew I had to get his brother, man. I mean, I actually saw you on the Joey Coco Diaz podcast too. That was fun to watch. And you know, great personality, love the family. And again, thank you again for watching the Final Two podcast.
Thank you.
Pleasure to have you on the show, Bill.
Yeah. Hey, thank you guys
so much.
Pleasure.
This is the Final Two podcast. Like and subscribe.